This is Leo Gilling coming to you this evening live from the city of Lauderhill as we cover the event, the visit of Commissioner of Police Anthony Anderson, and as the event is about to start, we have Mr. Commissioner of the city of Miramar, a longtime commissioner, Mr. Winston Barnes, at the lectern, and this evening should be a very interesting evening. I'm sure a lot of people are going to be out there asking a lot of questions about the minister, and I'm sure the topic of crime in Jamaica is going to be hot this evening in this forum. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Again, this is Leo Gilling coming to you from the city of Lauderhill, live right here in the Commission chamber. Good evening to you.
What we'd like to do is to prepare and to present the national anthem. To be done by Steve Higgins.
At the lectern is Commissioner Winston Barnes, and we're going to have
Good afternoon, everyone.
National anthem.
Please stand for the national anthems of the United States of America and then of Jamaica.
Oh, say can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose blood stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare those bursting female gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?
Now for the Jamaican
Please
national
join in
anthem.
the singing of the national anthem of Jamaica.
Eternal Father, our land, guide us with thy mighty hand. Keep us free from evil powers. Lead our right through countless wars. To our leaders, great defender, and true is the broad. Justice, truth, be ours forever. Jamaica, land we love. Jamaica, 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 land we love. Teach us to respect for all, to response to duty's call. Strengthen us the weak to cherish. Give us vision lest we perish. Knowledge and us of heavenly Father, and true wisdom from
This evening we are at the Lauderhill.
Please be forewarned that the real master of ceremonies will be here, I'm told, in minutes. So in the meantime, I pitch the chain. Come on, John David.
Ladies and gentlemen, we are at the Lauderhill Commission Chamber. This evening we have a community forum, and this community forum, we're changing MCs this evening. Here that's from Mr. Winston Barnes. Our MC is going to be Norman Hemmings, Judge Norman Hemmings. We have a slew of dignitaries here this evening. I can see at the front we have both hosts.
Hello, good evening, everyone.
Commissioner Denise Grant and the Consul General to Miami. We have Mr.
I believe I'm supposed to begin here with an invocation. So why don't we do that? If you can stand with me, could you stand? It'll save you the embarrassment, just to see you sitting in so much more embarrassment. All right. God of our weary years, God of our silent tears, thou who hast brought us thus far along the way, we come before you this evening. We give you the honor, the praise, and the glory. We thank you for this opportunity, dear Father, to have this august group of people gathered here today. Both some of the 1 million Jamaicans who live here in the United States of America and the 20,000 who join us each and every year to become Americans. Father, we thank you for each and every one of them. But then, oh Father, we thank you for this august group of people who have made their way all the way from the island of Jamaica to be with us here this evening. We thank you especially, dear Father, for these great men and women, dear Father, who are with us, who are going to give up themselves, dear Father, and speak to us about the greatness of our great island of Jamaica. We ask that you'll allow everything to go smoothly this evening and not be as late as your servant has been late this evening. In the name of Yeshua HaMashiach, Jesus the Christ. Amen. Amen. Right.
Judge Norman normally has something fun.
I think we have I thank you so very much, Mr. Barnes. I can't be as good an MC as Mr. Barnes, of course, unfortunately. But we have an interesting evening here this evening, and it's really exciting. It's exciting for a number of reasons, Mr. Consul General. It's exciting because this day in history, February the 28th, is very important. It's important because this day in history has a lot to do with our main speaker here this evening that all of us came to hear from. It has a lot to do with it because on this day in history, on Long Island, New York, there was a slave rebellion. And that slave rebellion resulted in the death of at least 2 African-American slaves and 1 Native American. Well, similarly, our speaker here this evening is in some way related to that scenario. Because in the year 1716, the organization that he represents here today, that all of us came to hear from him about, was actually founded and started. However, the reformation of that organization didn't occur until some 60 years later. During this time, well, 60 years later actually was the US independence. But subsequent to that, the reformation of this great organization that this gentleman leads occurred because of what's called the Morant Bay Rebellion, the same type of rebellion that had taken place in Long Island, New York, in the United States. And during that Morant Bay Rebellion, it was decided that the Jamaican Constabulary Force needed to be reformed. And indeed, it was significantly reformed during that time period. The other thing that's exciting and interesting about our speaker here this evening, and we're going to have other speakers before we get to him, is the fact that Our speaker hails from none other than Calabar High School, right? And although I'm a proud graduate of Jamaica College, I usually don't say anything good about Calabar High School. All of my cousins went to Calabar High School, unfortunately for them. But what's important about that, and for the speaker here, is that Calabar High School is actually named after a great port city in Nigeria called Calabar, where many Jamaican slaves came from. And it's interesting because the type of the people who inhabited that region of Nigeria tell of their history by saying they're descendants of Igbos. And if you know anything about Jamaica, so many great people here. If you know anything about Jamaica, you know that Jamaicans refer to people who have a lighter hue as being red Igbo. But that's actually, that's literally coming out of the language, right? And of course, our main speaker here today, just like our country general, is one of these red Igbos. Not only that, the school that he attended is literally located on Red Hill Road. But before we get to him, we have our own local South Florida Red Igbo here that I have the honor and pleasure of introducing. Ladies and gentlemen, could you give a thunderous round of applause to none other than the great Commissioner, Dennis Grant.
Thank you all for coming out this afternoon or this evening. I know that there are other things that are going on, and you took the time out to come out and to be with us and to hear, of course, from the Commissioner of Police. And so thank you so much for being here. Major General Anthony Anderson, our distinguished guest, again, thank you for being here. This is the great city of Lauderhill, where we have about 72,000 residents and a great influence of Jamaicans. This actually is the city that has the most Jamaicans, diasporas here. And the second city to that would be the city of Lauderhill Lakes. And so having the Commissioner of Police here is really a great honor, and it makes complete sense, doesn't it? And we are so honored that you are here, sir, to be able to discuss a very important topic, a topic that affects not just the nation of Jamaica, but I would say it's a global issue. And you are here to be able to talk to the diaspora, to let them know the facts, because we know that there's a lot of things that are out here, and we know that term fake news, yes, that is used quite often. And so he is here to discuss those things, to be able to let you know some of the measures that are in place already and some things that are going to be implemented as well. So those of us who are here and quite visit Jamaica very often will not be afraid to go back home and to have a good time. And I know those of us, some of us are here as well that have businesses in Jamaica as well. And so he is here to be able to not just discuss, but even to be able to talk, call and response, to hear some of your concerns, some of your questions, and be able to respond and address those. So it is really a great honor to have you here, sir. And it's really important to me as well, because my father, my late Sanford Mullins, was also a police in Jamaica. In fact, he was the Assistant Commissioner of Police in Jamaica, the head of telecommunications, and he was the person who brought the two-way radio down to Jamaica. So I'm quite proud of that. So it's really, really dear to me to have you here. And I am so pleased to have all of the great elected officials that are here as well, all of this distinguished guests. And we have, of course, with us, our Mayor of Broward County, Mr. Dale. We also have with us Mayor Messam from the great city of Miramar. Our seat to my right, our sister city mayor, Mayor Hazel Rogers from the city of
These are all Jamaican mayors in Florida.
Mayor, Howard Berger, who does consider himself to be Jamaican. Is that fair to say, sir? Yes, okay. We also have with us our Commissioner Margaret Bates from the great city of Lauderhill. Black elected official. Thank you so much. We honor her today. We have with us as well from the city of Tamarack, Commissioner Bolton. And alongside him is Commissioner Douglas from the city of Sunrise. And of course, my great friend, one of the best orators I know. Yes, Commissioner Winston Barnes from the great city of Miramar. Thank you. And we also have with us Chief Stanley. Yes, from the city of Miramar. And we know about our great Counsel General. I think he's the hardest working Counsel General that I don't want to say he's the globe. He's everywhere. For those of you who are on social media, you see him everywhere, right? Yes. So I'm going to tell you a little secret. So what did I say? Counsel General. So tell me, what vitamins do you take? So just said, that's right, white rum. And I'm sure it's a joke, right? Yes. But whatever it is, it's working. And we have with us as well, former Chief Smallin. And so Chief Smallin is Chief of Police here in the city of Lauderhill, as well as the city of Lauderdale Lakes. And in addition to that, we have Dr. Alan Cunningham, who is here as president of our diaspora chair. We have the former diaspora chair as well here, Mr. Golden. Can you please stand? Thank you kindly for being honored. And we also have the president of the ex-Jamaica Police Association, Malachi Smith. Now, are there any elected that I have missed? And the ex-soldier, where is Patrick? Where is he? Sir, you should be up front as well. Yes, he's the president for Jamaica Ex-Soldier Association. Thank you so much for being here. And anyone else that I've missed? He will fill us in, okay. So obviously we have distinguished guests that are here, the commissioners here. Please make him welcome. And I know that you have very strong questions, but let's make sure that we're on our best behavior in the city of Lauderhill. Thank you kindly.
Thank you so very much, Commissioner Grant. In Isaiah the 50th, chapter the 10th verse, it says, if you're walking in darkness without a ray of light, trust in the Lord and rely on our God. But in Jamaica, we do a little more than just relying on God, although God is the most important thing. But we also rely on our Permanent Secretary to the Ministry of National Security, Dan McIntosh. Could you put your hands together for this amazing woman who is with us here this evening? In addition to that, I think Commissioner Grant has done an excellent job of naming everyone, but let us also put our hands together for the members of the Swans Club who are here. And then, of course, the first elected female Jamaican American judge in Broward County, none other than the Right Honorable Jackie Fowler. Other judges here. I know people don't like judges because they never are running from the law. But we have some other judges here, right? If you could stand for a second, just let us see you. It's one of the red judges from Jamaica. A magistrate. Thank you so very much. All right, at this time, we have the distinct pleasure and honor of Commissioner. I know that you're here in part for the International Association of Chiefs of Police. And I know also that we have a representative here as well who also serves on that August body. But she's also a member of the Broward Chiefs of Police, and she also serves on the executive committee for NOBLE. NOBLE is a national organization for black law enforcement executives. Could you put your hands together for our great Jamaican representative? I know that within the last 2 days, North St. Andrews led some 19 different divisions in a special action in Jamaica. But as you can see here in South Florida, we as Jamaicans, we control everything here. All right? At this time, it's my honor to introduce to someone, to present to others, the great mayor of the city of Lauderhill, Ken Thurston. This is a gentleman who really needs no introduction, because he's not someone who sits in some ivory tower. He's someone who understands the people, who is constantly out working hard on our behalf. And so it is with a deep sense of pride that I have the opportunity to welcome to the podium at this. Oh. As I said, he's out working in the community. As a result of because he's working so hard, we're going to have a note of levity, but also seriousness as well. We're going to invite Malachi Smith, the president of the Jamaica Ex-Police Officers Association. All right? And I understand that he's someone that the present commissioner doesn't really like. But we'll bring him up anyway. Malachi, I'm beginning to speak, sir. I know that you love him. I know you want him. All right, then. We'll bring him up, this guy and that guy. Put your hands together for Malachi as he comes.
Thank you so very much. I'm honored to be here. Mr. Commissioner, CG, protocol observed. On behalf of the Jamaica Ex-Police Association, first I want to welcome you royally to South Florida. And I know that you're going to get some hard questions, but ex-police officers have your back. I'm here for you. I'm going to do a little poem for you, and it's you can join me along. When I see Jamaicans like this, I'm kind of moved, right? Every time I remember Jamaica, I'm a thinker, but try that. Every time I remember Jamaica, water come on me, yeah. Every time I remember Jamaica, water come on me, yeah. Miss you, my sweet, sweet Jamaica. Water come on me, yeah. That sound good. Miss you, my sweet, sweet Jamaica. Water come on me, yeah. In Miami, in the US of A. Driving on the 112 highway in this concrete hell. Just work for a little time to play. Thirsty for some coconut water to sightsee, you know what I mean? Peeking at the girl just modeling the scene. I heard a roar, and I looked to the sky, and there was here Jamaica flying by. And I cried. I miss you like crazy. Miss you, Jamaica, my baby. Miss the curry chicken back and gravy. Miss the eye drinks, miss my daughter. Miss drinking my belly full of sugar and water. Miss my Sunday morning breakfast, 2 fingers of soft boiled banana, a big red snapper, a large scotch bonnet pepper, and ice cold red shot. Jesus, nice. Or a big bundle of greens, slices of onion, tomato, little black pepper, with just a bumper sauce, fish with quarter spoon of butter to add the flavor, 5 slices of bread and wash it down with a big lemon love, a hot chocolate. Miss the Jamaican dinner. Just thinking about it, make my mouth water, dumpling, pumpkin, mackerel and banana, white rice, okra and the good old doctor, ackee and saltfish, bulla cake and beer, jackfruit, grapefruit, neighborhood, gooseberry, strawberry, pomegranate, custard apple, pineapple, tintin toe, stringy mango, beefy mango, East Indian. If you know lazy, you can't be hungry in my island. Miss the music budget. Every day and everywhere you have one. Every corner you turn, you bump in a one. Beautiful as a lover's leave morning. Pretty as a little sunset. Eyes bright as comet. Nose picture perfect. Cheeks shaped by God himself. Cheeks parallel to them shoulder. Skin like butter and a brain that would put poor Eve to shame. I will bet any man. When it comes to natural beauty, no woman can touch my Jamaican. Miss me like crazy. Miss the curry chicken back and gravy. Miss my hydrants, miss my data. Miss drinking my belly full of sugar and water. Miss the mirror shine of my granny's cedar floor. The squeaky hinges that hung her kitchen door. The coconut custard she made for me. Miss sleeping in the breeze under the old Graham mango tree. Miss her newspaper clean lampshade. The cobwebs that tied my face making me afraid. Walking at nights guided by peanut water. The strange sound of night in the country. Croaks and whistles of toad and bug. Yes, Jamaica, I really miss you, my love. Miss drinking my belly full of good Jamaican water. America, you're good to me, but I miss you, my sweet Jamaica. God, I have one wish. Turn all them corrupt politicians, thief, murderers, and gunmen back in a good patriotic Jamaican, and I'll pack my suitcase today and come home to you, to walk the streets, to eat your food, to sing your song, and when time comes, die in my island.
Thank you so very much, Malachi. And now we understand. And let me apologize to you, sir, because I know after 34 years on the JDF and these years now with the JCF, I know you're a little concerned that head of the Jamaican Ex-Police Officer Association is nothing more than a comment. But in any case, I want to let everyone know that this is a very serious occasion. We have a very serious guest here with us. And in fact, I believe you were the first person to serve the National Security Agency. I mean, totally amazing. Totally amazing. Put your hands together for him. He's amazing. Responsible for internal and external security for the great island of Jamaica. 50 miles by 150 miles. Is that approximately what it is? Very important island in the Caribbean. At this time, I'm told that I'm supposed to bring up a gentleman who is the Jamaica diaspora representative to the southern, the 13. Where's Dr. Right. Oh, I'm sorry, he's lost so much weight I couldn't recognize him. Dr. Cunningham is here with us. He's going to come and share a few words. As he's coming, I also want to recognize the Assistant Commissioner of Police, Dr. Kevin Blake, if you could stand for us. Dr. Kevin Blake. Very nice man. By the way, he's wearing a wedding band, so calm down. And Superintendent Raymond Wilson. If you could stand up. Dr. Cunningham, put your hands together for Dr. Cunningham.
Thank you very much. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Good evening, Mr. Commissioner. Welcome. This is a representation of the Jamaican diaspora. We are close to 400,000 strong in the southern region, 13 states. And so I am your newly elected, after 60 days, right? I'm still your newly elected Global Jamaica Diaspora Council representing the southern states. I am excited, sir. I am happy to be given this opportunity to serve our island of Jamaica. I would also like to take a minute to recognize Mr. Wayne. Is he here? Yes, Wayne Golding. Yes, our discussionary member. Ladies and gentlemen, I am extremely happy to be here with you, Mr. Commissioner. And on behalf of all Jamaicans living in the diaspora, welcome. You are home. This is family, Commissioner. Welcome. I know you have a lot of work to do, and we know that you have a tough road ahead. Your strategy, though, is what we're counting on. And so we want you to know that we are supporting you 100%. Important for you to understand that we're here to give you support. If you need any advice, any counseling, sir, you can come to me. But if you need money to buy anything, sir, like to go shopping, Siege is the best bet. So welcome, sir. If you allow me as well, Dr. Rupert Francis, or the chairman of the Crime Task Force, has asked me to read something for you. Commissioner Anderson, son of Calabar, my apologies for my unavoidable absence. We would like to publicly thank the city of Lauderhill and Commissioner Denise Grant for hosting this event. Our main message to all those who present and the world is that we have supported you and the Jamaica Constabulary Force. In all your efforts in fighting crime, sir, especially murders. We believe Jamaica needs a main man that can carry the task in terms of everything that needs to be accomplished. We know that you have the training, we know that you have the education, and we know that you have the experience. So we are trusting in you. We urge you to truly reach out to the diaspora and to keep us close, because among the diaspora we have several persons who are expertise in security, and we will gladly lend ourselves to you. Sir, welcome to South Florida, and I truly hope that you enjoy the time.
Thank you so very much, Dr. Cunningham. Could we see the 4 people who voted for Dr. Cunningham before? No, I'm kidding. No, very good. All right, then. And at this time, there is a young man who has taken South Florida by storm, literally. He came into this job, and everyone was wondering what he would be like, because we've had so many great and wonderful consul generals in the past. But when he came to this job, he came here to South Florida, serving all 13 of the southern states, as well as some islands in the Caribbean. And he has been amazing. Not only is he a man of substance, is able to engage with us intellectually, is able to communicate with us in terms that anybody from any social or economic strata can understand and get along with. He's also quite a gifted singer. Right? And it's not lost on me that so often he sings, he speaks, he tries to take over Malachi's job, he tries to be a poet, not a very good one, I must say. Right? But the most important thing about him is that he loves and cares about our community. And he has the kindest, most generous wife and daughter in the world. Put your hands together for our Consul General, a man that each and every one of us in this room love so much, Mr. R. Oliver Mi. I'm totally sad using the R, all the R stands for, but R. Oliver Mi. And before he comes, let me put this out here. We are being live broadcast on WCOP. They didn't tell me earlier, so I was making all those. So I'm going to take a different tack now, very serious. Ladies and gentlemen, it behooves me great pleasure on this auspicious occasion to be afforded an opportunity to welcome to the podium at this time none other than the Consul General for these 13 southern United States, Mr. R. Oliver Mi. Could you put your hands together?
Ladies and gentlemen, will you agree that we have the #1 master of ceremonies right here? Ladies and gentlemen, before I go into any words that I've prepared, I just want to thank everybody for coming. We started here at 4:30. Some persons had to adjust their time, but you are here. Elected officials, those who are not elected officials, and everybody is out. And what that says to me, people are excited and passionate about the greatest island country ever created in the world, Jamaica. Ladies and gentlemen, this spirit of working together permeates through. Just a couple of weeks ago, I got a call from Commissioner Grant. She said, CG, do you need anything? Do you need any support? I said, of course. I said, please, tell me what you need. So we told her about this specific project, and she jumped in right away, and has put in all the arrangements for us to be here today. And as you can see, everything was so well organized. So I want to give a big round of applause to Commissioner Grant. Major Anderson, my role as Consul General has been made very easy because of 16 Jamaicans who have excelled and have become elected officials. And they continue to make us proud. And almost everything we ask for at the Consul, they are here to support us. And this is the same spirit I would like us to view this conversation that we're going to have here today. Ladies and gentlemen, Jamaica has had 19 quarters of economic growth. We have had 19 consecutive quarters. We have had record number of tourist arrivals, 4.5 million people coming to Jamaica. Our debt to GDP in 2012 was at 147%. Debt to GDP. As we speak, our debt to GDP is at 93%. Jamaica is moving in the right direction. And I want us to get excited about it. This is a conversation today that we need to have. There's a lot of work that has been taking place in the area of crime. And sometimes we don't have all the information at our fingertips. But what I'd like to challenge each of us here today, I want us to listen carefully, ask the questions, because each of us is a part of the solution. Each of us has a role to play, and as you listen to the presentation, I want you to listen with your name as a part of the solution. A couple of years before I came up here as Consul General, there was an opportunity for me to serve as a leadership volunteer at the Tower Street Correctional Center, major prison in Jamaica. I have not spoken about this a lot. I don't wear it as a badge. But I find it significant that I'm driving here today and I'm thinking, whoa, look at this. I signed up to volunteer to help out with the inmates. And here I'm in South Florida with the police chief, with the community here to talk about crime and how we can bring solutions. Each of us has a role to play. Each of us here has a significant part in the equation. And I'd like us to really take on all hands on deck. Everybody here has a part and a role to play. So that's the substance of what I want to say. I want to recognize Wendy Hart from AFJ. Wendy, she's shy, but let's give her a round of applause. One of the best movies, or perhaps the best movie ever created out of Jamaica. What's that movie called? Them said we can't sing to me. The harder they fall one another. Daughter of Perry Hensel, Justine Hensel. Let's give her a big round of applause. Ladies and gentlemen, in closing, a politician recently, well, a few years ago, went into a community and asked the people what are your needs? And the community said, Mr. Politician, we have two major needs. One of them is we need a doctor for the hospital. And the politician said, no problem. So he took out his cell phone and he called, said, listen, ministry, want you to send out the doctor right away. Okay? Make sure you send him the doctor right. Okay. Very good, your problem is solved. What's the second need you have? Person said, well, boss, we don't have no cell phone service up here. I say that to say, you won't get any empty promises here today. Today you will get what is solidly happening in the community and what you can expect. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. I appreciate you.
That's why we love our Consul General. In fact, there's only one Deputy Consul General in the United States representing the island of Jamaica that really has no hope of doing anything greater with their life. And that is Sharon Burrell, because we have a young, dynamic, gifted orator in our Consul General. But there is Sharon Burrell over here. She's waiting in the wings, but unfortunately not going anywhere. All right. At this time, I need to quickly acknowledge some City of Lauderhill folks. Well, one, former Senator Chris Smith. Is former Senator Chris Smith here? Excellent. Thank you so very much. The City Manager, Desiree Giles Smith. Nothing would be happening here without Desiree. Thank you. And of course, our Assistant City Manager, Kenny Hobbs. We're Assistant City Manager Kenny. Thank you so very much. And everybody just is enamored with the staff of the Consul General's Office of the Consulate here in South Florida. Put your hands together for this entire wonderful team that we have here. The motto for Calabar is my utmost for the highest. The motto for our commissioner really resounds in his name. You see, his name, Anthony. It's not Anthony, right? Jamaican H and everything. It's actually Anthony, right? So, his name literally means highest praiseworthy person. So it's not surprising that we have here today with us the Assistant Commissioner of Police, Dr. Kevin Blake, to introduce our main speaker here this evening. The Assistant Commissioner of Police is a great giant in the Jamaican law enforcement community in his own right. This Assistant Commissioner of Police is an IT guru who is at the forefront of many things that are happening on the island of Jamaica, but he also leads the Public Safety and Traffic Enforcement branch. I've got so many tickets on the island of Jamaica, I can't wait to question him. All right, but would you put your hands together this time as we welcome Dr. Kevin Blake, the Assistant Commissioner of Police.
Ladies and gentlemen, good evening. It's a rather difficult task to introduce someone with 36 years of distinguished service and contribution to nation building without making the introduction longer than the presentation. So I ask you to bear with me as I try to summarize it, and just bear in mind that I'm not going to do justice to his contribution in the interest of time. Our guest speaker, our main speaker this evening, has almost 36 years service in the security forces, JDF, and the JCF, where he spent 34 years within the JCF, of which 6 of those years as Chief of Defense. And a few weeks, less 2 years, as head of the Jamaica Constabulary Force. And so that's a wealth of experience and contribution to nation building. Our guest speaker is the first National Security Advisor to Jamaica, and a very innovative thinker. And he is a United Nations recognized expert in major event security. He was in charge of developing security plans and subsequently executing them for Cricket World Cup back in 2007. He's a natural leader and also a very philosophical, out-of-the-box thinker. I'm sure after this afternoon you will realize that the security of Jamaica, ladies and gentlemen, I know you have a concern, but you'll see that the security of Jamaica is in good hands, and that's our objective here this evening. Our main speaker is leading currently not one of the most, but the most significant effort in organizational reform, and some of that you'll see this evening. So without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming our own Commission of Police, Major General Anthony Anderson.
Thank you for that introduction. I'm glad you compressed it. The people have been here for a while. Some people got here at 4:30, and now we're after 6 o'clock. So, based on the introductions that were made, and thank you, Norman, for rolling the tension for me, and getting a little bit of levity going. If this room full of dignitaries and really impressive people, I mean, mayors, many mayors, former senators, police chiefs, thanks for hosting me. Commissioner Grant, thank you for getting me over here. So if you can give me this evening, I'll just launch straight into our conversation, because that's what I think we should have this evening. I'll be doing a presentation. I'm going to go through perhaps a little bit quickly on some parts, because it's just in the interest of time, because I think I need to give you an opportunity to ask me some questions. And I really don't mind how difficult those questions are. We have lived in challenging times for a while in Jamaica. And we have to see our way clear, collectively, on how we're going to get out of the challenges we face for a while. So, in my presentation, although it says transforming the Jamaican Constabulary Force, it's a bit more than that. We're going to be speaking about the strategy that we're using to approach our problems, and then look at the plan of how that rolls out. Now, clearly I won't be going into a lot of detail, because that would take more hours than I have. And as I said, I don't want to take away from the opportunity for you to ask me some questions. Now, the people who, I have a room full of persons who are Jamaicans or Jamaican roots or Jamaican interests. And I thank you for your interest, and thank you for coming, because each opportunity I have to speak to a group about what we're doing is good for us. Quite often, amid the noise and worry that we find ourselves, sometimes it's very difficult to get your story out, what's really happening, how you're approaching things, so that people can actually have hope. Because hope matters. Hope matters in what we're doing. Hope matters around where we move as a country. I have a certain belief in Jamaica and Jamaicans. A significant belief, and that is why at the end of a long career in the military, I decided to come across and throw my hat in the ring in this manner. So, today is actually a good day for me, special day. My first grandchild is about to be born any second now. So I do what I do for her. See, I do what I do for my kids, but I do what I do more for my country. And each one of us has our own way of which we can contribute to our country. This is the way I've chosen to. And as I said, this is why I got back into it, because it's no point having some knowledge and some skills in a particular area and just monetizing them for my own benefit. So you take on these jobs, and you know, when you take on certain jobs, you take on a lot of tasks, and you know, sometimes it is a little thankless, but you don't go into it to be thanked. You go into it to do what you can and try and pull something together so ultimately we can have a better country. The other thing I recognize is that when you're from a small country that has in an Olympic final 6 persons from your country in the final, even though they're not running for your country, they're running for another country, but they're Jamaicans. And 2 spaces in an Olympic finals are left in the rest of the world. It means you can punch above your weight. You can get anything you want done. So let me just say that as a backdrop to what we're doing. The fact of the matter is, our people have experienced the trauma of violence for too long. You know, it says that violence as opposed to crime. I don't use them interchangeably, except that there's a lot of violence that becomes crime. Now, it becomes crime because the violent act is criminal, but the intention of the act is not for profit. It's for other reasons. So domestic violence that we see, we had a case in December where we had 3 people killed over a Yamko. Yeah, Yamko. But it's not really over the Yamko. It's over feelings of respect, disrespect, and a simmering anger that plays out in a particular way. How we define ourselves, how we define our manhood, how we define our rights, and how we define our territory, and all of those things. And there is a sense of this, that in one sense we like the fact that, you know, we carry weight, that we can do things around the world as Jamaicans, so, you know, watch it. But at the same time, that plays out in various negative ways in our country. Now, for sure, and there are many studies that will show you that violence brings violence, and it becomes a cycle of violence. And if you want to predict violence, just look at the previous act, and it will start to play out. That is why in everything we do, look at etymology and see what are the causes of violence, so that you can interrupt it. But if you don't hit those causes, it's going to spin out. The other thing is, and when things get bad, and when you're a victim of violence, quite often what you want as a response is violence. When you're not a victim, you're more rational and can stand up. But when you are, that's what you want. Now the truth is that the nature of violence is such that it doesn't really care who's doing it. It just is. If you do it, it keeps happening, it keeps happening, it keeps happening. Now that's interesting coming from a military guy, right? But whose business and training it is in the management of violence to achieve ends of the ends. But it's something we have to recognize. It's something that is for sure the actual case. So even as how we operate as law enforcement has to reflect this knowledge. What it means is, just very practically, if we have a confrontation and we have to shoot somebody, very legitimate, very justified, it means that we can walk away from there and say, okay, we did our job, that guy's a bad guy, he killed people, we've now killed him, all is well. However, quite often that was the only person who brought food to the family of 5 children. Now those 5 kids, having no support now, probably drop out of school, probably have nothing to eat, etc. I have now 5 times the problem I had before. What it means is that, yeah, you have to shoot the guy, but it means that you have a responsibility as well, working with other people and other agencies to intervene and not leave it like that. Now you're not going to do that unless you understand how this cycle works. And so that's a critical component of what we do. Right? So let me just run through my presentation, I'll be up here all day. But these are just some ideas that we need to share. That's why I say we need to have a conversation about this. So, all right, I'm going to run through quickly. Here's our situation. So, persistently high levels of violent crime, and as we know, violence and violent crime in particular. Gang culture, you know about that. It's not only present in our country, it's present in our music, it's present in a number of ways. Relatively high levels of public disorder, and it is the sort of change you get as as the country, as more money becomes available to more people, the number of cars in the country have gone through the roof, the number of people accessing these things, you know, even within our services. You know, when I joined the military, there was never a parking problem. Now we have to build car parks, you know, and that's a national issue. And you know, it's not something that we plan, it's something that has evolved. So now we have to get behind it and work out how all of this is going to work. And this evolution of the nature of crime and criminals. There was this thing that criminals from an area migrate to another area if they come under pressure. There are some members of the constabulary, former members of the constabulary force here, they'll know this, that, you know, they're in an area that they're doing their bad things, you put pressure on them, they go to the country where they had a cousin, grandmother, whatever, cool out. So that migration of criminals is there. What we're seeing now are criminals who are just mobile. They don't migrate, they just drive down the road and they drive back. The guys in Kingston who will be in a gang will drive down to Montego Bay for a party and come back the same day. They'll cross the country. The next day they're in St. Elizabeth at another event. Now, as they move across, they link with other people. They're constantly on social media, they're on voice over internet to communicate. So they have communications, they have mobility. Oh, sorry, is everybody hearing me? Yeah. Okay. Yeah, so they have mobility, and they think differently. They're youngsters who are, you know, who are doing things. And also, the transnational nature of our problems, they don't begin and end in Jamaica. There are a lot of organizations in Jamaica, gangs that are, their leaders are outside of Jamaica. They send messages, they send weapons, they send orders for things to be done. So that's just painting a little bit of the scenario, the situation. But I think one of the main things that we speak about as Jamaicans is our homicide rate. So that's a murder rate. So this interesting, you said 1972 newspaper article here, that crime wave hits Mobay may ruin the tourist trade. It goes on to the fine print, which you probably can't see. It says a delegation has gone to the minister, guns were blazing in Montego Bay and so on. That's a 1972 newspaper headline. February 11th, 1972. And you know why I use this? I use this because things were nothing compared to what they are now. But that's not what fear is about. Fear is about change. So if it gets worse, then you get afraid, you get concerned. But in 1972 we had this. I could have used this headline again and again over the intervening 48 years between then and now. So when I use this, there's sometimes a romanticization of the past that because we romanticize it, we want to go back to something. I don't want to go back to anything. I want to go forward to a place where that headline is no longer relevant. So here's where you go. 15 years. So I put that red line there because that red line is 1,000 homicides a year. Okay? So if we look at the from on the extreme, so this is going back from 2015 to 2019. If we look at the extreme right-hand side, the part above the red line is about the number that is in New York. If we go to third from the left, and you look at that line, that's 2007, sorry. The part above the red line is about what Chicago has. Okay. So what does this mean? Now, I didn't do this to depress you completely. I just want us to have a sense of when we're having our discussion and we think that there's something that has swung out of control. That's not the case. This is where we've lived for a while. And unfortunately, and the other reason I wanted this up is because unfortunately, our discussions have been, and you hear it out there, and certainly I hear it as Commissioner of Police, is that who's doing better than who? Who's done better than who? Because if you're down at anywhere close to the red line, you're doing great. If you're one of the higher ones, you're doing poorly. And so we argue with each other. We split our resolve as we argue with each other about who's doing better than who. As if that red line is some zero datum, and we can just wish this 1,000 away. Well, it doesn't. The change we're going to get is not going to come through wishing that away. And when it's as persistent as it is, as we have seen it, it has to get to a certain point, which is a tipping point, before you can see it spin down by itself. So everything we do collectively has to be targeting this to bring it down. You have to get this down and down and down. We have a unique position. I say we be the police force. And our unique position is that, anybody who's experienced one of these, just one, in their lives, knows how that feels. We see every single one in situ as a force. Which means that the JCF, this is not a statistic for us. This is real life. We live this. Other people see this as a statistic. And that's why there can be a debate about, is that good or is that not good? Or what are we talking about? It's not good, but we can get it good because we have the capacity to do so once we start to have the right conversation and do the right things collectively. All right. So you get the news every day about what's happening there. Is it swinging? Are we spiraling? That's the language, spiraling out of control and all of that. Well, this here, can't go on the screen. Okay, yes, this will work on the TV screen. If we look at the where we are now, which is the right hand, 1326, 1287. Just look across. You can see for yourself where we're at. That's where it is. That's real life. So the conversation we want to have today it's got to be an honest conversation. And so I'm not going to tell you things that are not so. I'm going to tell you that everything is not perfect, but I'm going to show you where we're going with it. No, it's a different guy. I'll do it. No, it's fine. It's fine. Okay. Right. Simply three things. Because I have this in a much more complex format because it's quite complex how you do it, but I needed to break it down in a simple way that I can communicate it easily. So I'm going to speak about these three things and how we approach them. Law enforcement activities being one. We have to, obviously, every single day, go out there and deal with this problem and every other problem that exists. We're a national police force. That means there's every different type of policing that is done, we do it. There's no other police force in the country. So every type of thing, if you think federal, if you think local, if you think specialist, the JCF does it all. So that's what we do. We are a force of including auxiliary, a district constable, and civilians. We are a force of 17,000 persons, of which 12 plus thousand of those are what you call uniformed sworn officers. So it's not a small organization, certainly not small by Jamaican standards, but when you start looking at the load that's placed on that organization, it's a whole other thing. And when you start splitting it into all of the specialist functions and all of the other things that need to happen, it actually is not that much as you think. Okay. So the second one is obviously how we develop a force that can consistently. Will you go back? I'll do the. Can we go back to the? Can we go back, please? Can we go back and forward? Is it? Yeah, I actually have a clicker here. Thank you. I'll do it. Okay, thank you. Okay. So the next one, obviously, yes, is to get that the force in a position to deal with the problem so that we can sustainably do that. And third one is a critical component of stakeholder engagement. And that means here, there, and everywhere. Okay. Okay, so law enforcement, on the law enforcement side, these are basically the, 6, 7, 8 areas that we're focusing on. Now there are some subsets of these, and I'm going to briefly go through each one of these, particularly the first one because it has gained a lot of attention, more than it probably should have, because it's actually not a very complicated thing. I'm going to explain it in a second. Okay. Right. So here's where we are. So the reason why I lined it up like that, because it's really in levels of intensity. At the top is really the states of public emergency that there's been a lot of conversation about, and at the lower end, it's really, when I say lower, no less important, but less intense, is community policing. Okay. So these are the kind of changes you get with violence in a state of emergency. As you're probably aware, since you get the news, etc., early this year, at the early part of this year, we had a problem in East Kingston. East Kingston flared up. It's not the first time, but it was. And in the first 25 days of the year, we had 12 homicides in East Kingston, and we had a few last year. We implemented this measure on January 25th. We have not had one since. So the first 25 days, we have not had a shooting there since. When the longest running longest running place where we put this in place is actually St. James. And although you see a +7 in St. James, we're comparing a state with a state. That is not, we're comparing the same thing, both times, because we work back and forth from it. Because they declared one, it was stopped, and then we redeclared it later. But let us compare the 3 years. I just want to clear this, the air on this. 2017, 2018, and 2019. In 2017, we did not have one. We had in St. James 335 homicides. In 2018, we started one in about the 2nd or 3rd week of January, which ran for the year. We had 102. We got a 70% decline in a year. In 2019, we had it for a part of the year, and it went up to about 150. This year, so far, we are running the lowest level of homicides in St. James for 20 years. So now the point is what it does, and it's not a big mystery. It's not what it does is rapidly reduce violence in a particular space. So it's a violence reduction methodology. It does not fix crime and all forms of crime and all of that. What it does is drop violence almost instantaneously. Now, does it drop it to 0? It has in Kingston East so far, but no, it doesn't. It's not realistic to think it would drop it to 0, but it drops it significantly. So what have we been seeing in St. James? What we're seeing in St. James is not just a function of this methodology. What has happened is it has given the space to do all of the other law enforcement activities well. When you put in a state of public emergency, there is no law enforcement activity that stops. They all continue at the same time. What it does though, it gives your detectives breathing room to make better cases. It creates a zone of peace that we can do community interventions in. In St. James, the interventions we're doing there have caused them to recover guns at a rate that's probably twice as fast as the next division. And a lot of these guns are the community just saying, there's a gun there. There are guns there. Go for this guy. There's a bad guy over there. That is because of relationships that have been developed. So the discussion around this thing, it's a simple thing. It does what it does, and it doesn't do anything else. But it's very useful to create space to do other things. Okay? So the next one, the zones of special operations, which is the next level down. Basically, this is a development tool. It's a standard fair hold build strategy, and what it does is create a security environment which you can do development activities in communities. The difference between this, and I think this legislation, this is also act, is somewhat unique to us, is that by law, once you declare the security operation, community intervention programs and the spend on the community and the development of the community is required by law. It's not if you choose to or if you want to spend something on the community, you must. And so it becomes quite an effective development tool. It holds the persons who are declaring it feet to the fire to actually carry it on. Because other things come up, as soon as things start to calm down, we think that, oh, okay, good, so we can go back to old ways. We can't. We'll just start going up again on us. The other thing is, clearly, there's been no way that we could do proper law enforcement in Jamaica without a gang strategy. And I'm speaking about, so we have done very targeted law enforcement against gangs. But we recognize as well that the inflow into a gang are really from the young people, largely. And so there are a whole range of measures that are being done, not necessarily by us, but with partners, to cause people to be diverted even before they reach that stage. Our work against gangs has been significant. There are new precedences being set in our courts and in our judicial system to deal with this. We have a gang to be arraigned, and we are looking for where we're actually going to do that, because 50 members of that gang are going to be arraigned together as a gang. The 2 leaders are in custody, and 50 members of the gang are in custody.
Nice.
We have a very strong charter of rights, and bail is one of those rights. And so we as law enforcement have to present a really good case to keep these guys from being back on the road. I have 13 gangs in custody, and none of them are getting bail because of the cases. So this is the work that is going on by the team at the JCF in terms of key focus area. The Director of Public Prosecutions was just here in Florida recently, our Director of Public Prosecutions, and dealing with a gun trafficking case between Jamaica and here. And she has been saying, she's been in this business for a while, the quality of cases are going up. No question about it. The quality of cases are going up, so that we're getting a lot of guilty pleas now, which is a good thing. I mean, court systems cannot manage the level of stuff that we have going on. All right, this one. So, sometimes, especially in the diaspora, you think of things as they were, as opposed to actually what's happening there. Like Jamaica, like everywhere else, is incorporating more and more technology and doing things. But as a policy, as a law enforcement strategy, we're looking at how we build cases around science, and the eyewitness is supplemental to the science, as opposed to build it around a witness and then the science supplements that. It's just a flip of the discussion. And so we had 50 firearm possession cases, firearm-related cases in the Western Regional Gun Court, High Court in Jamaica. 60% of them were solved through DNA, because it's an automatic thing now. Something that you've done here, you know about it, it's actually happening at home in the same way. Any scene, you do that. Previously, you're trying to attribute a phone that's used in crime, and you're looking at the device, things on the device to attribute it. The DNA is all over the phone. It's very simple, So between this type of DNA and cyber forensics, we use a lot of cyber forensics in what we do. It tells you whole stories, especially when you're doing gang cases. And the way we use ballistics, we have guns that have names. You see them travel. It shows patterns. And when we take them off the road, when we get them, we know it tells us whole stories. When you layer ballistics on DNA, on cyber forensics, you start to build cases that are rock solid. So that's what we're doing. This which ACP Blake heads up at the moment, again, there was clearly going to be a need with the massive influx of cars in the country every year, plus the way our public transportation system is heavily taxi-based and so on, which we had to regulate. And so we had to bring this together as part of our thing and look at public order and public transportation. dwell too long on this because there may be questions about it, but let's move on. So, for those people who go back and forth to Jamaica and drive in Jamaica or get driven around Jamaica, sometimes it can be harrowing. So, yes, okay, so interesting little factoid. We issued twice the number of tickets as the highest place in the United States. But how do you change behavior though? Consequences. So we can issue them. That's enough. Our police have no powers of punishment, and we shouldn't. So what we do, we have powers. Our powers extend to ticketing, to bringing a case if it's an offence that's beyond the ticketable offence. But the consequences are really what shape behavior. It's something that we're pushing on to get stronger consequences for some of these things. It's really important. Otherwise, people just wait and say, why bother? We have a problem with bike riders without helmets. It's a challenge. They're dying. They're causing our roads to be less safe. The fine is $500 Jamaican dollars, which in US dollars is somebody help me. $3. Yeah, like that. Really, it's not going to shape anybody's behavior very much. So these are some of the things, but we're working on legislation that has more consequences to it. And again, we're going up, certainly those multiple ticket holders, we have a team that goes and actually finds them, gets them in front of the courts. Okay, so this is a key part. We have to, so the anti-corruption branch of the constabulary force, who became the nucleus of the major organized crime and anti-corruption agency, MOCA. So that was moved from us. We've had to rebuild our internal affairs component. And that's one of the key things that I've been focused on. If you as an entity, as an organization, cannot regulate yourself, cannot bring your own persons to book for the things they do, then you cannot be credible. If somebody else is doing it for you, it makes them credible, not you credible. So these things, when they come up, sometimes people say, okay, so this bad thing has happened, if people know that this happened, then they won't have confidence in us. I said, I disagree. I think confidence comes when you know these things, when they're happening and you know we're dealing with them. That's what builds confidence. Not that we're not going to have 12,500 people who are saints. No, that's not going to happen. I mean, one of the things we do is a much heavier level of vetting for people entering the organization now. So we know we keep on pouring more clean water into the organization. So, as I said, there is no, across the country, one of the mandates of every divisional commander is to have a program going. It is part of their plan, it's part of the things they're assessed on. They have to have an intervention program going with the community. And of course, obviously community policing is really just general policing. That's what you do with police, with the community. The fact is, even with our size, it would be impossible for us to police without not only the cooperation, but the support of communities. And the greater that support and cooperation becomes, is the better we can deliver policing to them. So it's important, that's an important part for us. So running rapidly into the second thing. So good. Here's what we're talking about, transformation. 5 particular areas. First thing, people, structure, infrastructure, equipment, technology. Quite simple. So people are first. You know why? Because it really does, if the people aren't right, it doesn't matter what else you do. Yeah, that means you can have all the technology in the work, ultimately it boils down to our men and women in uniform and what they stand for, what they believe in, how they do their business. Okay, so those are some of the things we're focused on delivering. I don't know if people can actually see that. It says, of course, that cares for its members, a confident professional workforce through capacity building and transparent systems of elevation of members has been a challenge with, of course, how people are promoted and all of those issues. It's been contentious over time. It's something that we're standardizing so that it becomes as transparent and clear as possible how you advance in the system. Okay, so on the people's side, one of the things when I came over, I realized that there was not a defined structure in which we took care of our members. So it was happening in a somewhat ad hoc manner, and you know, anything that is everybody's responsibility is nobody's responsibility. So we had to create in the headquarters a department that deals with the welfare of our officers. And it was headed up by ASP Wilson here. He was operating out in Portland. I pulled him back. I don't know, he was about 15 years the head of our police federation. And so was instrumental in the development and has been really committed to the betterment of police officers' lives. So why not use him? He's the best person to do it. He's passionate about it. And of course, we have all of those services that you would expect. I think the third one is important, coming from my own background as a military guy. A culture of training is critical. Training is how you get your people back from encounters safely, how you save them from doing things they shouldn't or responding in a way that they shouldn't, that leads them in trouble. Police officers' job is difficult because everything they do is going to be assessed, not on the scene where it happened, but later on in a room with people who probably haven't been exposed to the things that that officer has been exposed to. It is critical that we train them to be able to function in an environment that when they're in that situation, they can confidently say they did what they did and that the reasons for what they did are justified and justifiable. So that training component is a welfare thing as well. The other thing is that to deliver and utilize the type of technologies that we're pushing in place, you have to learn how to do that, and that's important. And how do we, when we're spread across the country, we have 186 stations across the country. How do we deliver training to our officers? Because we'll never be able to bring in 12,000 guys into an academy to run them through training in that way. So we're pushing out training by developing, we have an e-learning platform. We're developing the content now to put on that platform so that the things you need for promotion, the things you need to know to be a police officer is delivered to you in your hand, on your tablet, on your laptop, where you are, on your phone. That content is being developed now, and we're not using electronic copies of paper documents. We're creating digital content that's interactive, so police officers gather the information quickly and are able to know what to do in circumstances. And that's the only way we can make it equitable and make sure that the person in the furthest part of the country in Jamaica can get the same level of policing as the people who are in the middle of Kingston. Right? So that's being rolled out now. Again, that investigative center of excellence, that's something we're working on, putting together. We already have a detective school, but we need to step it up on this area. Structure, quickly. Those branches are what we've reformed so far over the past 2 years. Public safety and traffic enforcement branch was formed, the welfare department. We had to form a technology branch. Best thinking. Best practice, that's it. Best practice, that's it. Best practice says you should do no more than 3 major technology projects at once. We're doing 20 plus. And we're doing it because we don't have the time. We don't have the luxury of time. We have to fix our situation quickly, and we have to do our change management as we go along. When windows open, an opportunity presents itself that you can do things, you just do them now. And then you sort it out afterwards. So the specialized operations, that's what used to be Mobile Reserve, and we've done some changes there. Again, the Inspectorate and our communications unit, trying to spool them up, because this information I'm giving you isn't out there. It needs to be out there. Everybody needs to have access to this information, so people know what's going on. You know, we're not an intelligence agency, we're a police force. So we have to be examined by the public, and we have to, you know, make sure that you know what's going on. So this unit is the one that delivers this. Infrastructure, quickly. We have 116 of our stations have been redone since in the past 2 years. It's a major push. It is something that the diaspora has been helping with for many years, helping the communities that they came from to do a station here and there. But at the rate it was being done, it never get done. I mean, security comes at a price, it's a commitment, you have to fund it. There's no cheap version of it. And you know, I think every police chief, whoever was, can tell you this. If you don't fund it, it can't happen. And so there's been a commitment to funding this, and so we're able to get through this. Some of these conditions, as you know, those people go to Jamaica, use these facilities, you know, it ain't good. Now we're making it good. So we expect, of course, having done that, I expect better responses from my officers to the public, because they're in conditions that should lend itself to that. And the place, we're moving outside away from this guard room principle to a reception area for our police forces, you know, police stations. So you can come in quickly. All right. Again, we have to do some rebuilds. There's some headquarters in Spanish Town that we have to redo. All of these things are actually. So everything I'm telling you, there's nothing I'm telling you that is I hope to do at some point. Everything is being done, is somewhere in the process being done now. Right. So technology. So we're in the process. Late last year, we went through a process of re-establishing our microwave system. We can now carry 5 times the amount of data across the country, much faster. In place with their just I think, you know. So I'm not going to go through every single one there up there, but as of January this year, we started to track all our vehicles. But the starting process of tracking them, we haven't gone to all of them. We have a lot of vehicles, a whole lot. But we're tracking them, and it's very interesting. It gives us, we know where they are. We know if they're idling or they're shut off, or we know if they come out of the area that we want them in. We know how fast they're going. I get a 1 second update. 1 second update. I know if somebody's driving aggressively, if they're braking aggressively, if they're swinging aggressively, it sends a report. If you have an accident, now I've been looking at accidents, government vehicles for a long time, and you know I've not seen the statement from the driver that said I was speeding and this happened. There's always some other reason why things happen other than just I was speeding. With this system, meet an accident in 6 seconds, I will report exactly what you did. I don't really need to ask you if you're willing to write it. You know, you can give me your version. I can match it against what the facts are. So this is, as we invest, we have to become more accountable. We have to know where our people are. We have to know what they're doing. It's really important. And so just knowing starts to adjust behavior with our members, which is really important. That way we know we're giving the public the best we can with what we have. Again, we are developing a complaints and commendation system online. We're also working on something that you can actually, the kiosk, to just enter your own data. Certain types of reports, it's not really necessary for you to sit down at the police station for hours trying to get a statement to say something about why your phone that's lost or your wallet that was stolen or something like that. We can do this online. Or if you come into a station, as long as you know how to do it, we can show you, and then you put it in yourself. If you can't, then that means there are a few people who we have to still do it the old way, but not everybody. So there's no point doing it the old way, it just wastes police officers' time. The other thing that's going to disappear over the next year to 2 years is a station diary. There will be no book. So it means that as soon as something's entered in the grill, we know it's important. Just enter it and it's everywhere. We're actually going through the bid evaluations on that. We're evaluating the products both on our station record management system, which that is, and also on our case management system, which allows you to track it, know what's going on in all of your cases. The station record management system means that when you get a receipt, as you do when you make a complaint or a report at the police station, you can't get a receipt unless they press send and it's uploaded. That way you get a receipt generated. That way you know for sure what's going on. It means that our information we give to the public is more reliable and it has an automaticity to it. Let me think. Again, interesting. We now can, like up here, if you give me I don't have one with me here, but the same two-way radio that somebody has can also be used. We have a new radio system that we're testing at the moment. There's a two-way radio, P25 radio, dual SIM smartphone. We have a system, just put in your TRN number, you're up, you know everything about it. Well, not everything. There's still privacy. There's still privacy things. So not everything, but a lot. Had a recent event with media in Jamaica, and I asked for somebody in the room to give me one. I gave one of the editors gave me his, and it was very interesting. I came up and I looked through it, and then I showed him his profile. How many points he had in his license. It was very interesting. Or we running vehicle plates and all that, same way you see here, screen in the car and all of that, we'll roll that out. But also license plate recognition cameras on cars. So I have a prototype running now. You see how well it works. All it does is as you drive past, it scans every license plate. When one that is related to whether it's a concern with the documents of the car or a warrant associated with it, it pops up with a red asterisk on the screen and the police officer can stop it. That's what it is. Again, body-worn cameras. I said to my officers, because there's this thing about body-worn cameras, where sometimes there was I think less so now. I think that's changing, but there was a time when police officers did not want to wear body-worn cameras. So the point is, apart from whether they have to or not, we can do that, but there's probably nothing that protects an officer greater than a body-worn camera. Because remember, what I say to my guys is, when you don't have on a camera, a body-worn camera, you're the only one at the scene who's not filming. Everybody else has a camera out, and a phone camera or a tablet filming. So if you want to be the only guy in the room without a camera, and you're going to try and tell your story verbally, whilst everybody else has a movie, I wish you luck. Right, so I think that is changing. I think that type of thing is changing. I think that people are much more comfortable with it. Let me just move on. Oh, that's just more stuff. All of these are a range of technology projects that are all going on at the same time to deliver a different type of policing in Jamaica. Let me just continue. Equipment, again, we're actually looking at some uniform changes. Our uniforms that were reformed a few times. Was it 17, 16 first, then 1838, around that sort of time. And then more recently it was in the 60s, 50s, 60s, and so on. The uniforms we have do not allow for the technology we need to be hung on that uniform. So we're looking at doing those changes to make sure that the technology to police in a modern way is there. So we're doing some work on that now. And of course, you know, implementing as well a number of less lethal or non-lethal responses for officers. Give officers more opportunities to respond. But they range, in Jamaica you have a range of responses that can change on you minute to minute. The same officer who's dealing with actually helping somebody across the road can be down the road in a gunfight. So that's our reality. Okay, moving along. Right, this one, I think this one is probably a key one for this, but it's obviously international. We have partnerships with almost every three-letter agency that exists in the United States, and then on a number of local law enforcement. Now, we were having some discussions at Broward Sheriff's Office and also with the Chief Stanley about how we strengthen our communication, strengthen our ties, strengthen what we do. We can't have as large a diaspora as we have here of Jamaicans and not have those sort of ties in the police force here. And there are obviously a number of diaspora members who are actually in the police force. And so those linkages naturally to better communication, to better ties. And so we'll be working on that. We have very strong links with NYPD as well, and we do a lot of work with them. But then, of course, as I say, since it's country to country as well, with all the federal agencies that exist. So we have a lot of ongoing transnational investigations now that should reap some benefit for us. We have the diaspora. That has to be our, in terms of international partners with what we do. You are more than critical in the process, and we have to make sure that pathways are there for you to engage. Now, a lot of people in the diaspora want to invest in Jamaica, invest back there, and at the same time you want to do something with the police and for the police or with the police. So I think the best way we can do this is really to look at things that communities need that we're in, and let us do them together for the community. So less about us, but more about us working together to do it for the community. That's what's going to bring it to. And of course, we have a whole range of local partners, and this as a strategy. This is actually not just a nice to have, but it's a strategy that is going to create the kind of inclusion necessary to deal with that problem I showed at the beginning. That kind of problem doesn't just evaporate on you. We have to collectively, strategically work together to get this done. And at home, if all of the things that the CG mentioned that are the positives, almost, if not all of them, were done because you had a combined political focus on it as well, supporting it, and a national focus on it. And there were sacrifices that were made to make that happen. This is another era that we have to do that. We need that combined political focus on it, and that combined national focus on this issue, and if we do, we can get it done. So, if you look on the right-hand side of this, and I only think this is probably the last slide. There's probably one after it, there's a Q&A slide. But these three things are what defines and has to define what our officers do. Now, we'll never be able to train an officer, put them through training that will show them every circumstances they're going to be confronted by. No way. So we have to give them a certain set of things that they can hang on to respond in situations that they have not necessarily seen before, that they're meeting up on for the first time. So the first one is that we have to be a force for good. We have to, as every officer has to understand that what you do matters, and what you do when nobody's looking matters even more. That's the first thing. The second one is that you cannot break the law to uphold the law. Now, if the laws you have in place aren't doing it for you, it means you need new laws. It means legislators need to change things. The instant you start breaking the law to enforce the law, you're on a slippery slope, because which ones do you bend, which ones do you ignore, which ones do you do? How are you going to get out of that hole? And who determines that? And when it's kind of being done, to an extent you let your legislators off the hook. They want change. They also have a part to play, as well as us on enforcement, as well as everybody else. So that has to define us. And the third one, that if our officers, and I'm speaking about Jamaica now, if our officers respect the least of our people, they respect everybody else. So those three things are critical. If you look at them, if the country adopted the same things, and you're a force for good, you too can be a force for good. That means what you do when you don't have to do it, and you help your brother's people. If we had the amount of violence that we have, that is a function of respect and disrespect. Even not, and some of the things spin out to violence. It spins out in an aggression that is unnecessary, that may lead to violence. On the road, somebody bad drives us. And so we drive down, we can't wait to get up beside them, so we can give them a piece of our mind. So we do that, so we drive up beside them, and we, in Jamaica, the car changes. So you have the car, see who's in the car. You wind down your window so that you can properly hear what you have to say, and then the person sees you wind down the window and gesticulating, so they wind down the window, and you're about to let loose on them. It's your favorite teacher from school. All of a sudden, hi miss. Hi miss. You need to be careful. You did that. What you did a while ago was very dangerous. Nothing's changed. You were still bad driven. So what was all that about beforehand? What was all that anger about? What was all of that about? You're going to give the person a peace of your mind. I think you say the same thing to them. See that? These are the sort of things that we have to kind of recalibrate our thinking and our responses to each other if we're going to really deal with some of the fundamentals of aggression and violence in our society. The journey continues. Good. I'm done.
Hi, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Put your hands together again for ladies and gentlemen. Powerful presentation. We're going to have a question and answer period here now. As you can tell, the insignia for the Jamaica for the Jamaican Constabulary Force has a crocodile on top, right below the crown. So some of the people here are princes and princesses. Some of the people here are going to be crocodiles. But then on the left-hand corner of that insignia is a downward-facing dove. And this writing that's on there, you trope serve. It means that there are two sides to everything, to serve both sides. And so this evening, ground rules in terms of asking questions and getting answers from our great guest speaker here is as follows, right? You're actually going to ask a short, concise question, and you're going to get a quick response. We don't have a lot of time, but we want to get as many people as we possibly can. Is that okay with you? All right. As you can tell, it's the motto of the Jamaican Constabulary Force is to protect, to serve, and to reassure. Hasn't he reassured us here tonight? Yeah. Right. In fact, he has a bachelor's degree in mechanical engineering, a master's degree in defense administration, coursework study at Harvard University, as well as different institutions here in the United States of America. Who is going to be asked the first question here for us this evening? All right, we have a roving mic here, and we're going to leave this here.
Ladies and gentlemen, question and answer section. We're having a question.
One sec. Sorry, ladies and gentlemen. Perhaps, I don't know, it was remiss of me, I didn't recognize my team that came out, but also, which is the Wilson Lake, and then of course the team that was down in Miami doing something else, led by the PS, and see Mr. Simpson there, Mr. Cowan over there, and so on. They're all here to support. Thank you very much for coming.
Yes, sir. Good afternoon. Thank you very much for sharing with us what's going on. My name is Balance, and I sometimes I'm a host on WZOP and WZVP, having a radio show on Sundays. Now, one of the questions I'd like to ask you, we have many people here having many questions here, and I would like you to tell us a little bit about the deportees who are being dispatched in Jamaica, and they're very vicious and dangerous if there's any plan and care for these people.
Okay, so remember, so you have different categories of deportees. You have persons who have immigration violations, everything from that stage to guys who have been involved in the worst type of criminal activity. The truth of the matter is that when somebody returns, having not committed an offense in Jamaica, you're somewhat limited in what you can do. There is work I'm aware of that being done around reintegration of people. Perhaps, the ministry people could probably even speak a bit better on that than I can. But yes, there are groups, both non-government and government, who do work with deportees to try and reintegrate. So that is recognized. Of course, as I say, they have not committed an offense in Jamaica, so there's limited trackings that you can do. Okay.
A comment and a question, quick. Ladies and gentlemen, I've had the honor of working with General Ants 30-odd years. This is the best person to transform Jamaica police force. AC Blake, stand by. You're being groomed. I know the general. Stand by. Give your support, financial, intellectual, intelligence, information, to this man and his organization. You can trust him. Still, General, I have here a book, More God, Less Crime. To what extent in Jamaica is the church giving you support?
Okay, so the church this is an area that the church has consistently spoken about. Usually, I've not had a non-supportive message from the church. They've been largely quite supportive of what we're doing, and have very strongly condemned crime. Perhaps as a partner, though, I think we have work to do together with the church in perhaps some different ways, because we find that in a lot of the areas that are hotspots for violence, there's a concentration of churches as well. No, it's just it. I'm not saying there's a reason. I'm not creating anything other than that's a fact. And so, them being there already, perhaps there's something they can tweak and do alongside with us to have a greater impact on this area. One of the things is that even our churches, our NGOs, everybody in Jamaica is very militant. Yeah, we have this kind of militancy about us, and sometimes we have to understand that it's not everything that you want to get done that you have to take an aggressive, violent approach. Sometimes you can take a different type of approach and get some results. So there are a few thoughts I have about on the engagement side of what we can do with our churches to get some better effect.
So there's a place in Portland called Fruitful Vale. You're going to find that it'll be most fruitful if you ask just a short question and you'll get an answer like that.
Yes, sir. Name is Mark Cameron. Right back to the world. Anyhow, I moved back to Jamaica, and I've had some issues with crime, which I have not spoken about. One of the things that I've noticed is that there's no investigations about the crimes that have been committed with the type of intensity that is required to have a solution. The second thing is
that there aren't.
There are not. There's not enough investigations going on. The second thing is that I'd like to ask is that being part of the both branches of the force, JDF and police force, why don't you integrate part of the JDF, the police force, to get more and leave police officers who are trained in aspects of policing the more investigative work? Thank you.
Okay, so let me do the second question first. So the JDF has been supporting the JCF non-stop since 1976 on the road, and even more so now. So the JDF is actually out there, and they're more so now because of the Jamaican National Service Corps program has given them a little more boots to go do that. In terms of, if we have law enforcement people here, perhaps they can discuss as well. When you have 1,300 homicides and similar number of shootings dealing with, your bandwidth on your investigators for lesser crimes starts to diminish. So we have had to pull out investigators to be very specialized to deal with certain things, to just give it space. We deal with everything from skipping of cards, fraud. We have a whole department that deals with sexual crime. So it depends on the day. The fact of the matter is, we're not there yet. We're not as good as we can be. But what we're seeing is a trajectory, and I take it from the side, from outside to know how I'm doing. From the prosecutors, from the Crown Councils, from that, how are we doing? You know, we had them in, the DPP and her team in a week ago to say, and she was very clear, this is what you guys are not doing, and this is what you guys are doing, and these things that you're doing are getting better. So, you know, it's a work in progress. If there are some specifics, I mean, the good thing, there's no bad information from me. There's embarrassing information, there are things that concern you, because obviously I take responsibility for everything that happens in the organization that I lead. But the more feedback I get, it tells me what I need to fix more and quicker. So if we can get some, we can get some specifics, and it may just be a particular area that's not functioning the way it should. Right.
Good evening, Rasta. I think it is well known that Spanish Town Bus Park is one of the hotbed of extortion and other criminality. I think it is well denounced that a lot of the illegal guns are coming in from via Haiti, via the Port Antonio, St. Thomas side. What means, not theoretical, what practical, pragmatic means are being put in place, are going to be put in place to stem Spanish Town Bus Park, which is our epicenter, our hub of criminal activity?
Okay, so okay, good, I'll answer your question. So let me talk about two things. One is the Spanish Town, the bus park, and extortion. Extortion is one of the most difficult things to deal with, and simply because the persons who are being extorted largely will not tell you so. They're afraid. Or for whatever reason, they develop an ecosystem and they will not tell you. They do not come. You do not have a lot of witnesses in extortion cases or people willing to work with you. Right? Now, why things persist is because we live in a democracy. We have laws. And as long as the laws protect people's rights, we have to prove that case. Now, you can't have an extortion case that doesn't have a complainant. It's not enough to just say people are extorted. We need somebody to say that person is, and we have to handle that information and deal with that thing. We have to do a particular type of operation to allow that to happen and stick that you have the case. And we know we live in a very violent environment. So good. So that's on the bus park. The other side of it, that the gang that controls the bus park is the gang. I have 50 members of that gang in custody right now. No, is that all of them? No, it's not. And is the bus park a lucrative thing? Of course, then it remains lucrative. So the nature of these things is that more pop up. But 50 of them are in custody now, awaiting trial.
And the guns from Haiti?
So the guns from Haiti. But earlier, late last year, the country acquired maritime patrol aircraft capability, and that allows us to essentially see all the vessels that are in our water. So we have done, there are two things. With guns, largely, if you're doing an interception on guns, they throw them overboard and they sink to the bottom of the Caribbean. Drugs, less so. Drugs float. And so what we've seen is, the gun trade is also the drug trade, different ways. So recently, we are finding, we recovered in one day 2 different interceptions, one with 4,000 pounds of ganja, the other one with 1,900 pounds. We just intercepted 1,200 keys, 200 pounds keys of cocaine coming into the country. So it has, the hit rate has gone through the roof. Now the thing is that we also have guns coming through our phone. And you can tell a Haiti gun different from one that came into the port. But the one that came into the port, new, the cartridges, the casings, everything was brand new. So even as we seal the territorial waters, which of course is 25 times the size of the country, and we have an officer who sits down in Jackson South in Florida, who is in the targeting center for trafficking in the Caribbean. So we have direct link with the operations center of Injati South, the defense force who runs the aircraft, and they link directly with the police force in this matter. So we're shutting down. We're also installing, there's a process going on of installing coastal radars so that we can see what's going on. So all of these things have a technological solution. We now have to focus on what's going through the ports, and there's an intelligence component to that, as well as screening and scanning components, and work's being done on that. So we're going to harden Jamaica so that it's not a place of choice to traffic through, go somewhere else. That's that. So it is practical, tangible things, not theoretical things.
Commissioner, we are mindful of your time, and we know that time is well spent and you have another appointment. So how many more questions can you take, sir? And when you leave, will any of your officers be here to answer some of those questions?
Ladies and gentlemen, this is Leo Gilling coming to you from the chambers of Lauderhill
so
in Florida. And
Dennis C. Grant is the name, sir.
Commissioner.
Very impressive presentation. There is hope. However, there are a lot of us who would like to retire, come back to Jamaica, and spend our final days. However,
Commissioner Anthony Anderson,
it seems to me,
answering questions. We're about to wrap up right now, but I thank you so much for being here. I hope this was informative enough for you.
And so
one question left.
Come back, so what they have come back, and we're afraid to go and live out our days. What are the plans here?
Okay, so thank you for that question. So unless we deal with the violence for everyone's at risk, including returning residents. So can I say that there are different categories of returning residents?
I thank you so much for being here. I am going to end the transmission right now, and you have a wonderful evening, everybody. Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Makes with people, whether to build, and whether with family, we've seen that with families over land, and also with relationships that have developed, that have gone south and gone sour. So, I mean, the numbers, those ones have a pretty high clear-up, but clear-up doesn't help, because the thing has happened already. So, we developed a book, a manual is online, for returning residents, and some of the things that they have available to them from the police. We have contact numbers in this from each police division.